Welcome back, amigos. So we're done with our little car club. No, it's not a club. Car group get together. It's always a good time. The guy's got a really nice shop. I mean, it's huge. He tells great stories from back when he was running Trans Am and IMSA racing, and how he come about all of his cars, and you meet some other interesting car people, and you know, all of that nice stuff. As you notice, there's no music playing because we got docked for a copyright infringement in one of my videos. Whatever. They said, "Oh, we're gonna demonetize that video." Like, I don't make any money on this. I mean, who the hell are they talking to? Anyway, so where are we? Yes, starting issues. I was talking with a buddy of mine. We were trying to figure out why this MSD box seems to be acting like a capacitor and holding electricity. And I told him, I said, well, I can't really take it to the racetrack because, you know, you get up in the staging lanes and you try to start it and it's going to kick back against the starter 25 times before it starts. And that's no good. He's like, well, if that's the only issue with it, he said, just put a a starter saver on it. He goes, I've got one. He says, I'm not using. He says, I'll let you use it. I'll let you have it. And I was like, wait a minute, I've got one. Totally forgot about it. I took it off that car, I don't know, 14 years ago. Well, turned out, you know, didn't need it. But right there, starter saver. So we're gonna wire that up. And if that fixes the hot start issue, we got as you can see, got the wire cut, which means it is pulling 20 degrees of timing when you spin it over. So that'll give it, with 30 total, that'll give her 10 initial. It ought to start pretty good that way. But anyway, we got some of the steering column put back together. We're gonna get the steering wheel put on and get the tack remounted and the shift light, but we'll get the start retard wired up. I found where it had sparked under the dash. One of the wires had actually pulled out of the plug a little bit, and it had clearly been patched before. So it looked like to me, when I plugged it in, the receiver inside had pushed out a little bit because when I unplugged it, it wasn't the same depth as the rest of them. So I pushed the wire in, and then when I plugged it back in, I held that wire, and now the little piece of bare wire is no longer exposed. So hopefully that takes care of the two issues. Hopefully that takes care of two issues. One, where I had sparks under the dash when it touched something, and two, the second issue, where sometimes the key wouldn't engage the starter, but yet the push button always would. So that told me it wasn't the starter that was a problem, it was the key itself. And it made me think that maybe that was the wire and it wasn't making good contact all the time. So we'll find out. We haven't tried it since then, but we're going to do that here in a few minutes. And is it a professional installation? Hell no. Right there. But does it work? Yep. The key still does not engage the starter every single time, but I got a push button, so it doesn't matter. Push button works every time. I ran it, shut it off, started it again immediately. I must have done that 8 or 9 times, and it fires right up every time. So that little bastard right there works good. On to the next problem, which is maybe the brakes. We might need to drive it down the road and see how it's going to act first. Then to get the rest of the steering wheel put back together. That's as far as we've gotten with that. But that shouldn't take too long to get the rest of that put back together. Onward, forward, downward, I don't know, whatever the hell direction it is we seem to be going with this thing. And when the key works, this thing starts like a champ now. No, And when the key doesn't work, we got this button down here and it still starts like a champ. I don't know why the start doesn't always work on here, but we have that as a fail-safe, as a backup. So we're just going to ignore that because I mean, it's a brand new ignition switch, and the detents between each one now is so much better than that old switch was. But it's just, and it's not the starter, because if it was the starter, that wouldn't bypass, that wouldn't fix it. So it's got to be in the wiring from here. Anyway, that's an accomplishment. I'm happy with that. It's all back together. I'll go get my Chiltons out of here. Steering wheel's a little crooked to the right. I put it on the first time, it was a little crooked to the left. So I pulled it back off and turned it just a smidgen and put it back on. Now it's crooked to the right. Whatever. That old manual steering box, it probably don't matter. As long as it's probably within just a couple of degrees, it's probably going to be straight because there's that much slop in it. But I guess we need to run it down the road and see how she's going to act. And then maybe we can make a decision about going racing next weekend. I can't think of anything else other than that wheel cylinder. But if it stops relatively straight, if we go, it'll be Farmington, and Farmington's got a ton of shutdown. So we wouldn't have to get on the brakes hard. Anyway, let's fire it up, run it down the road, or at least around the driveway, a couple of laps, and see what happens. All right, so the battery's hooked up. As you can see, we got a interior light on, not a dome light. But let's see, I guess it's not technically a cold start because we ran it, that was a couple hours ago. Anyway, let's, a couple of pumps, see if the key's gonna work. Nope. All right, we got this button. Well, that brake's still unhappy. I guess I need to change that wheel cylinder. All right. Yay. More work.